The output flange of this truck was seriously worn out, which caused the transmission shaft to not rotate normally. In Pakistan, it was not only expensive, but also hard to find spare parts, so they used scrapped flanges for splicing. After simple processing on their lathe, the damaged output flange could be used normally. Because the owner's truck was mainly used for climbing, the spline of the output flange was directly ground flat, so as not to delay the delivery time. The owner also quickly sent it to their repair shop because they were faster in repairing pens and other accessories. Because the wear of the pen's flower sword could not be repaired by cladding, the master first had to measure its diameter and depth. The main purpose was to ask the colleague next door for spare parts. Although new parts were very expensive in Pakistan, scrap-date hand parts were not only very affordable, but also easy to find. After the two masters exchanged their heads and faces, they finally reached an agreement at a price of 2,000 rupees. Later, the master in the shop also walked 300 meters and successfully got the same scrapped output flange. The internal flower sword groove was indeed not worn out. After confirming that the inner diameter of the flower swords of the two was the same, the found parts were built into the whole position. Fu first cuts the owner's flange. Only the remaining flower sword groove needs to be cut flat and smooth. The inner diameter needs to be continuously cut and expanded by the turning tool so that the output flange of the accessory has space for splicing. Under the skilled and fast processing of the master, the existing aperture data needs to be recorded with a caliper to facilitate the subsequent processing of the accessory flange. In order to make the two spliced more firmly, the docking can not only reduce the difficulty of embedding the flower sword, but also the concentricity of the other will not be affected. The output flange plate has been processed at this time. The flower sword of the scrapped accessory is separated. Fu first cuts at the fixed end of the transmission shaft. The main purpose is to cut it to the outermost side so that the entire head can be completely preserved. The master controls the turning tool to continuously force the knife. The flange of the output flange has been successfully separated. The part on the claw plate is the flower sword to be embedded. Fu first cuts the appearance of these flower swords according to the aperture of the whole position because the fixing of the claw plate still occupies a part. As for the master, he needs to turn the direction and cut it again so that the appearance of both ends can be completely consistent. After the master uses the caliper to measure the appearance correctly, the flange plate of the output flange has been successfully separated. The part on the claw plate is the flower sword to be embedded. The master can process the same thread without measuring the logic, then use a lathe to remove the edge scraps. Then the replacement foil has been processed. After confirmation, the two are connected through the thread. In order to make the rotation of the foil more convenient, the master needs to use the output shaft to rotate. Only the foil groove can be matched. It can be screwed completely to the bottom. In order to avoid concentricity errors, the master needs to use a scraper for the final measurement. The output shaft and the output flange are concentric and coaxial. The gap must be welded with welding rods. The thread-free connection will also loosen. After the inner side is welded, the gap of the side flange plate also needs to be welded and fixed. The welding of the end can make it stronger. When the surface of the welding bar is completely uneven, the outer welding bar needs to be simply cut by the master to restore the original appearance of the output flange. So this worn gearbox output flange has been simply replaced and repaired. This kind of repair is simply unbelievable.